arm is numb, the Keurig's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
Where's the emergency? Is that coming from Gabe or David? Who's having an emergency?
I think
out
that's
there?
David.
That is
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
David, are you having an emergency? Hey, your ride's here. David, your ride's here.
Did you guys ever have like,
David.
when you guys were first starting to do stand up? Did you guys ever have like the 5? You have to have like some sort of save for like 5 situations, like the waiter drops martini glasses everywhere, and you have to be like, "L'chaim, it's a Jewish wedding," and like when you guys were.
Yeah, you had to have a save. There was one place where I would perform in Astoria, Queens. It was a wine bar, and every 4 minutes there would be an overhead train passing by.
Nice.
And so you would have to time your punchlines to not get drowned out by the sound of the N and Q train going overhead.
God.
It was a nightmare.
That's really funny.
I had this horror film idea for ambulances, having like a phantom ambulance that drives around the city and collects people to have their organs harvested for the Illuminati.
Oh God!
Oh
yeah,
my God.
How gross is that?
That's awesome.
Yum yum.
Yum. So yeah, it would be about an undercover cop or a detective like trying to hunt down what happened to all these corpses that have been found with organs missing.
In a world, one cop loves liver or something.
Right.
And
well, there's
yeah.
a Koch brother who's constantly has organ failure, or like a Sheldon Adelson, or or like, why is Henry Kissinger still alive? You know, they're all part of this sort of Uber app to get organs harvested. And there's one rogue ambulance that's on the case.
So,
oh my God, I mean, not to poo-poo on your idea, Gabe, but like, I would love if this seems like a Jordan Peele film. This seems like something he would absolutely run with, you know?
Yeah. Well, go on.
Did you? I gotta say, did you come up with this entire idea because you wanted to make fun of the conceit of it's Uber but for, and this is just like.
Well, so, the way you would do, also the idea of charities that are created by billionaires to hide their money. Like, why is there a Henry Kissinger free clinic now in this neighborhood? And the clinic is now taking blood types and doing free physicals on all of these working class people. And then they figure out who the healthiest and easiest to disappear members of the community are. So there's like a Venn diagram where it would be like, oh, well, they're the right blood type. They don't have a lot of family that would miss them, and they're relatively healthy.
I think the craziest thing about that is that sounds like kind of a good idea if you're a billionaire. You know, like it's kind of a clever.
Right?
It's kind of a clever idea. Yeah, I mean, like Jeffrey Epstein could totally, set up like a charity for children. You know, and then it's all of a sudden this just becomes a molestation factory. You know, I mean, you.
Do you remember Jimmy Savile? I mean, I think a lot of bad people and predators who have money cloak themselves in charities. So Jimmy Savile was a talk show, on television personality in the UK, and he would give all this money to hospitals, and then he would go to those hospitals, and everyone loved him because he was giving them money, and then he just like molest the kids that were sick.
Yeah. It's dude.
Fuck, man.
He's like So you know what he's doing is like this really weird version of like capital manipulation and an accumulation via molestation. You know what I mean? Because like I was just listening to another podcast about how they were talking about how like in capitalism what has happened is it's in like the 13th and 14th century, what people would do is they would like root and pillage out places.
Hell yeah.
But then they would make like basically antiquities that we now look at today. So like the reason there's a giant big castle in Germany, or like the reason like Spain has all these like cool like riches and buildings and shit like that was basically like the baby steps of capitalism in like the 13th and 14th century. But then once capitalism really started happening, it wasn't uh, designed to reinforce and just make like gaudy like kind of brooches and crowns and stuff. It was instead just to get more capital. And Jimmy Savile, he took it to the galaxy brain level and was just sort of like, no, I don't want like a crown or more capital. I just want to molest. So I'm going to like use my ability to create capital and entertainment and then just turn it into molesting kids, you know? Like he got that access.
I don't get the connection, but nonetheless, the molest. So basically, what you're saying is like the Hagia, that like molestation was Jimmy Fallon's Hagia Sophia, and his like
it was his Taj Mahal. It was his Taj Mahal.
Bro, you could have said that
See?
in a lot fewer words. I'm just saying.
See, dude, you guys get me. Y'all get me. y'all understand where I'm coming from.
That was a Shaggy Dog molestation story.
Yeah.
So, well, we're keeping it creepy. What's everybody cooking? How are we doing with food during the pandemic?
I'm good, man. I had some frozen pizza. We were really on I've been doing this dish called pizza beans, where
that sounds English.
That sounds like a Oregon Trail meal.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking good. It's so good. So just take white beans, garlic, and tomato paste, and a little bit of hot water. Mix them all together in a pan. Put some cheese on top. Bake it in the oven for 10 minutes. Boom. Pizza beans. Pizza beans. Boom. Done.
Protein, carbs.
Yup.
This is that is okay. I have weird. But you know what? You seem to still be alive, David. So I can't disagree with that. Dude, my eating habits have basically remained the same. I basically in New York anyway. I jump between fast casual and pizza. Whenever I'm delivering pizza. Yeah. Pizza is basically what I'm able to eat because most pizza places are still open in coronavirus times, essentially. And a lot of times when I'm delivering, I got to eat something like really fast because I'm like currently like delivering.
You need fast food.
I literally need fast food, like quite literally.
Are you doing McDoubles, Danny?
I've never been that much of a McDonald's person. My parents, like when we were growing up, like my mom definitely fell into the category of like, it's not like we didn't eat fast food or junk food or whatever. She just like, we weren't getting Fruity Pebbles. Like we weren't getting colorful cereals. Like we were in that middle zone where we got Kix and like Cheerios and stuff like
monochrome.
So, yeah, a lot of beige foods that were like cereals, literally like a hearty wheat thing, and we would get cooked for. So I'm not a big like fast food person, but like Chipotle and Qdoba have like definitely like split that difference for me because I think we can all agree that Chipotle and
Danny
Qdoba's
loves
main
Qdoba.
failing. I do. The only problem with it is it's just salty. Like Chipotle more so. Like Chipotle on their menus, it always has the little salt shaker icon being like, yo, if you are eating this whole bowl, you're getting more sodium than you need in a day. But like, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's probably the healthiest fast casual option. I mean, it's got greens, beans, rice, a protein, a vegetarian option.
So, guys, in
Yeah.
other words, Danny is actually quitting Ponzi Scream to go be a promoter for Qdoba.
Dude,
Yo, that should
Dude,
be our first. That should be our first advertiser. Is Qdoba.
Dude, it was so sad when Corona first started and they temporarily closed the Qdoba. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? This actually affects my life now. But they reopened it, so I'm okay.
So
you know, I'm horny for this quarantine to end so I can go back and eat at a nice restaurant. One of the reasons that we live in New York is all of the diversity of food and flavors.
yeah, baby.
Yeah.
And-
You can just casually walk by a 3 Michelin star restaurant and be like, oh, weird, you know?
And but yeah, some people are not able to wait like we are.
So this is the tie-in that Gabe has been building up. Gabe's been building up this pivot to this horrible story. Beautiful. I must say, from a rhetorical standpoint, you led us into this story well, but it's a horrible story. And it was 3 McDonald's employees were shot in Oklahoma City after telling a woman the dining room was closed because of coronavirus.
Over McDonald's. People took bullets for McDonald's food.
This is a thing that we do on Ponzi Scream where we actually sneak in a regular crime. This is a little Happy Meal toy inside the white collar crime. We got a regular crime story, and that's what this is.
Yeah, that's also okay. I have some pushback here. Okay,
Ooh.
I have been to Oklahoma City. My dad's originally from Tulsa, so I've been to Oklahoma a number of times. The one time that I've been to Oklahoma City, I tried to do like a New Yorker-y kind of thing and just be like, I'm just going to walk around town. It is difficult to walk in that city. It is a driving city
Yes, it
for sure.
is.
There are a straight up lack of sidewalks in that city. So I imagine this guy probably just came up to the McDonald's and he just lost his mind because he's just like, even though you could eat it in his car, he's just sort of like, where the fuck am I supposed to eat? Where the fuck am I supposed to eat? There's no fucking place to go except my car. Like he like his mind split in half, you know?
It was a woman, but yes.
Did you all see Falling Down? It came out in the 90s with Michael Douglas.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We've talked about Falling Down.
Have we? Yeah, and he walks into the equivalent to a McDonald's, like a Whammy burger with a semi-automatic weapon. And it's kind of like white man rage film.
Nice.
And how like at that moment in time it was culturally acceptable to have a white guy on the screen with a weapon complaining about fast food. And like what that really looks like today, though, is this is like a sequel to Falling Down, where it's a woman with a gun who desperately needs her McNuggets in the wake of a global pandemic.
This is the feminist reboot of Falling Down. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that this is the reality: is people snap over not being able to get their fast food now.
I would like to
because of germs.
I would like to see the rate, like the correlation between the number of like movies about how society is evil and like angry, like Taxi Driver kind of a movie, and Falling Down kind of a movie, with the what type of crime legislation was passed in that era, because maybe it ties into the zeitgeist of being like, I am upset with how society is disgusting and society is like these horrible institutions, and you need to, I hate fast food, and maybe that is inspired, Joe Biden to write the crime bill or something.
That's interesting. I think it definitely holds sort of loosely to just Gabe's reference to Falling Down, because the 90s were just when people were starting to be like, wait a minute, fast food is bad for you. So we should put this character in a fast food setting demanding a certain type of fast food in order to be like, look at this American excess and just like
that's some eco-fast shit a little bit, right?
A little eco-fash, a little bit about how the consumer's dignity is being undermined by false advertising, and how we're not the customer is not always right at this fast food place, but not in a
sometimes,
but not and
the customer is dead wrong.
But I don't know too much about this case, that you brought up. But that's heartbreaking that people are A, being murdered at their jobs, and then B, being forced to work when everyone should be at home.
It looks like no one died, thank God. But then another person at a Family Dollar store in Michigan was fatally shot after confronting a woman whose daughter was not wearing a face mask. So this is someone who this is a security guard at a Family Dollar store.
Yo, man, who's bringing their barefaced kids into any stores. Do you want your kid to get sick?
Dude, people are getting very cavalier with their children because of the sort of like semi-scientific nature of like children not getting corona as much. As a person who hates children, though, I do love the idea of them just being restrained in a way to which I like. I'm glad I don't have to see their stupid little faces. That's great. Like I'm all about that. But yeah, people are definitely. And I also don't know how to feel about it because I've been exposed to the same amount of information and media you guys have. So part of me is just like, I don't know, maybe kids aren't affected by it as much. But then there's these like weird one-off stories where they're like, these children got AIDS after they got coronavirus. And they have never even been exposed to it. And it's just like, I don't know, you know, still where the science is very, very fungible right now, you know?
Yeah, man. I think what's weird about these sorts of altercations is it just shows how when you become alienated, in my opinion, when you become further alienated, like people are just closed off, you know, pent up, can't be around anyone, it just causes more misanthropy. And so like
Yes.
right? Like if you just constantly, I think that's one of the craziest things we don't talk enough about, the cognitive and psychological changes of being like a car centric society or of being like living in the suburbs all the time. You're just never really around anybody. And you don't really experience just any sort of just like actual physical closeness. And so that maybe makes people more agitated. And this might be evidence of that. It's just like someone asks you to put a mask on and then you shoot them. I mean, it's just like, and you can kind of feel that, all of us can kind of feel that in our day-to-day lives. We're like, if you're in the countryside and you see somebody from far away, you're far more scared than if you're in the city and someone walks past you because there's no one else there. And you're just like, who is this person? I don't trust
We're
this
all
person.
becoming Michael Douglas from Falling Down. We're all becoming car talk show radio lunatics because we're no longer actually interacting with people in a physical way anymore. We're all interacting through mediated quarantine time.
Okay, wait. You know, maybe you could get around this in a sort of like kind of like what did they say in like the early 90s and early 2000s, or maybe where they were like incision warfare, where they're kind of going in and like being very precise about it. You do a thing where you fight this kind of stuff by doing like precision legislation, where you make it illegal to speak to a iPhone or Android device by yourself in a car. I think that would cut down on like the like mid 50s white guy rants by a half, you know? You make that you make that illegal like right off the bat.
Illegal to talk on the phone in your car.
No, not even while it's driving. Like if you see a guy doing this, basically, like pretend I'm in a car. If you see a guy doing one of these things while they're in the car, just like
the forward-facing video reply guy in the car.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Make that
It's now
illegal.
banned.
I support that. Yeah, I like
you
that.
precision. You just make that blanket illegal. You know, like a cop can go up to the car and just be like, "Sir, and sir, who are you talking to? Are you talking to your wife? Are you significant other?" And they're just like, "No, I'm just talking to the internet." No, under arrest. Under arrest. All right. And also, just to be anti-cop, it's not the cops who deal with it. It's like UN peacekeepers. It's like they're the ones in charge of this. All right.
Beautiful. Do they have guns though?
Yeah. Let's just give them tasers, and they still have to wear the white helmets that say like UN on them. That would be good.
Tasers. I like that. So speaking of like fast food and restaurants and how this is affecting this came in so this is actually from last year, but I think it really ties into some issues related to what coronavirus is going to do to us, what coronavirus is going to do to our economy. There have been a lot of movements around and a lot of documentation about Yelp and how Yelp has been hurting or messing with certain companies and certain restaurants, and they just like have a very exploitative sort of relationship where it says like, if you want to be on our platform, then you have to basically comply by our rules, and these rules end up being very, very punitive, right? This came out last year. Apparently, Yelp has been quietly replacing restaurants' phone numbers in order to add tracking so that Grubhub can bill them for a marketing fee.
Sick. Yeah. So I get it. So it's like no matter Yelp is basically trying to get a finder's fee off of every restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Weird.
instead of using the restaurant's their real phone number, they have created a middleman phone number
Yep.
that people call. And Grubhub and Yelp is Yelp and Grubhub have the same owner.
Yeah, don't they, David?
So now it's now it would be not a monopoly, but it would
Yes.
be Yelp is a platform and Grubhub is I think of like how Amazon has its own products and they also sell your products, but Amazon will make products that are exactly like your products
Totally.
and can sell them for
Yes.
less. So in doing that, it undermines the idea of a free market. And
Yeah.
And there's just like
Yeah,
there's a lot of this is everywhere, is basically an illusion of competition when in reality it's all owned by one company. Like I remember looking this up in the hotel industry. There's just a huge number of hotels that are all just owned by Hilton or all just owned by Marriott, but they're just technically called, a product that the Marriott company sells. I don't.
Yeah.
But you think, as a consumer, you think that these are different companies, but they're not, and they are not legally required to disclose that. And so that I think that's what's going on with Yelp and Grubhub, or they're quote unquote partners. And now it looks like this was today, so this is going to be when this podcast goes up, it's going to be a week ago. Uber reportedly rejected an all-stock offer to buy Grubhub. They was considering trying to have Uber buy Grubhub, which would have further consolidated the entire tech industry.
Now, I really think that we should take some time to tease all this out because it's fascinating. One, that Yelp is at least seen by consumers as being an objective place for peer-to-peer sharing of information and rating of products. So that lends this veneer of some sort of authenticity or quality control based on us giving the ratings and reviews. But then Yelp is also selling premium space and artificially creating ratings for restaurants who can pay to be promoted by Yelp.
Yeah.
Then so that already undermines any legitimacy to Yelp's rating system right off the bat because you can pay to play. Then the next big part of the corruption is that Grubhub is Uber basically. It's it's a way for people to it's an aggregator because people
It's in the middle.
Yeah, people find restaurants on Grubhub. But if Yelp and Grubhub are now linked, then that adds another layer of incentivizing and keeping the consumer from actually finding the whole array of restaurants that are out there. It's only restaurants that have paid to play with Yelp that then get on Grubhub.
Yeah, this seems like a weird power move, and I would also make the potential argument it almost seems like the dying throes of like a weird old beast in a way. Because when I think of Yelp, like I've never been really a Yelp user at all. It just hasn't really happened for me. It almost seems like Tom's Shoes or whatever. It seems like something that existed in like 2009 and like grew to prominence. But then now when people look at it, I feel like it's almost a foregone conclusion where people are just sort of like, oh yeah, a lot of the ratings on there are just kind of like invalid and weird. And like they're them being in charge of Grubhub or trying to take over Grubhub or whatever. It's just them in these sort of like, dying throes trying to like regain some sort of legitimacy or in like market share. Like not even in like trustworthiness. They're just trying to like hold on to something.
Well,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
no, and this is what they call, there's like organic growth versus artificial growth, basically, or growth through acquisition. And
Yeah.
there's actually very little, as a percent of what you imagine growth to be, there's actually very little organic growth anymore, because you get money from venture capital. If you're starting a business, right, you get money from venture capital, and that lasts you basically up until you're a viable company. And then
Yes.
once you prove your viability, a lot of times in the tech industry, you're big enough where you're at to where you can actually be making money. You're big enough where you can just start acquiring firms that haven't made it to viability yet. And
Yeah.
so basically, you just end up becoming a vessel of this venture capital firm, wherein you are operating to the point where you can actually just like meet some getting into the black, right? And then after that, then you're just acquiring, and you're just acquiring firms in order to be able to do that. And so there's not actually anymore this like idea where you're like starting a business in a garage, and then you're growing, and then you have more sales, and then there's more sales that leads to further growth and expansion, and then you start franchising out. That just does not happen, especially in the tech sector, as much as you think.
It sounds like all new businesses are manufactured boy bands.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But you know what? Sometimes they work out really well, to the point where it's like, sometimes you're just sort of like, of course there's a Pizza Hut connected to this Taco Bell. It's a combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. sometimes those artificial things, they naturally make they become organic.
So I've always looked like, living in New York. I mean, we have a luxury of so many private or smaller restaurants that aren't chains. And whenever I can, I try to find the number for the restaurant. If I'm going to order delivery, I always call the restaurant, or I call them and I tell them I'm going to pick up, because it's faster than having delivery and cheaper. And what I found interesting was another article on how Grubhub is everyone's using it now. Like tech is flourishing and artificially boosted in the markets because everyone is at home and they're ordering things online. So Grubhub is doing such a great job. They're making all this money. And there was an article that showed a receipt from a business where, they had $1,200 in sales, but after Grubhub took all of its fees, the profits that restaurant made were like around $600. So it was
Holy
like
crap.
exorbitant
Wow.
fees, leading to a 50% chunk of their income. And so when you think you're supporting a local business or a restaurant and you use Grubhub, they're like gouging not only you because you're paying more, but that company.
Totally.
And
And
I felt
all their and the thing, and like they're providing an index, right? Ultimately, that's what they're doing. They're providing like a visual index of what options are available for someone to actually do something for you, right? Like they're not
Yeah.
like there's no actual service that they're providing for you other than an up-to-date phone directory that is visualized and put on a map.
Right. How have they've like created exactly. It's a phone directory or it's a review page that has somehow been monetized in a way where it's become more totalitarian. It's not free information. It's information that
Yeah.
limits your actual choices, and that that gouges both the consumer and the small business.
And this is like exactly the purpose of antitrust laws, right? Is to protect both the worker and the consumer, and like to protect all three: workers, consumers, and smaller competitors. And because then you can just get a privately held firm having just a complete domination of the entire food industry in New York City, of like the entire takeout industry in New York City would just be You have Seamless and Grubhub are basically the same product. And then if
Yeah.
Uber bought it, all of a sudden you'd be like, well, I'm going to get Uber because if I get 10 Uber rides, then I get 20% off my next Grubhub purchase.
You know they're doing that shit. You fucking know that they're gonna do that shit.
And
also,
yeah.
Go ahead. Gabe.
Well, I was just thinking, I read today that Uber via Zoom fired 3,500 of its employees. So even the idea that tech is creating jobs, not only is tech shedding jobs and redundancies, but to consolidate like that, there'd be a firing of half of Grubhub's staff.
How are
at
they
some point.
I thought they were contractors. Are they admitting that they're employees?
Oh, these are the people in the office. These are the administrators.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's also it's like one of those. First of all, that's an insane number.
Huge.
It's like 30.
Wow.
People don't necessarily think about it all the time, but like 3,500 employees is like insane. All from just one company. I mean, it really should speak to a lot of these tech companies. Yeah, and how tenuous these relationships actually are. Because like you look at their employment page or whatever, and it'll be like, oh, full benefits, $50,000 a year, healthcare, a 401k thing. And they'll offer that for maybe a little bit, and maybe you'll have that job for a little bit. But then at the same time, you're going to be in one. They'll take it away like that. It's crazy. Also, I would say this too. As far as Seamless goes and the way that they are just kind of taking away from the overall profit of these small restaurants, it really does benefit for people to just kind of reach out to these restaurants and call directly, because I've worked for restaurants and food and beverage places before where I wasn't working for Seamless or Caviar or Grubhub. I was just working for the company.
Yeah.
And like when I worked for the company, I got paid an hourly wage. Now, did I run into the same sort of small business tyranny that people often do? Yes. But I was at least working for like not contract work. And I can tell you, as a person who currently does that, like, you do not get, it's like you can make money doing any of these like little gig worker jobs, but it is not for the faint of heart. There's no sort of like safety net or anything like that. And actually calling those food establishments and like implying to them, we prefer just calling you instead of being available on Grubhub or whatever. It does so much more for their delivery people,
Look, every time I go out, before this pandemic, I never used any of those services, but I would eat out a lot more. And I would walk into the restaurant, and if I didn't want to eat there, I'd say I'd like food for pickup. Within 10 minutes, that food would be ready for me. Mm-hmm. If I called and I said I will pick it up, within 10 minutes that food was ready. When you call Grubhub, when you use Grubhub and you use this impersonal app, the opportunity for them to fuck up your order goes way through the roof. And then and then your food will arrive cold 45 minutes to an hour later, because they bundle all those orders, and somebody drives around with like 15 orders. Mm-hmm. So and then you don't even get to call the restaurant and say, "Hey, I called earlier, is my food ready?" Because you never had a personal contact in the restaurant. You're only interfacing with this faceless app on your phone that's going to send you back auto reply messages.
I heard of a situation where somebody ordered Chipotle and it came to their house in 20 minutes, but it was somehow cold. and it's just sort of like, wait. How the fuck did this even happen? You got the Chipotle super fast, but it was already like lukewarm and cold. It's like these things, they will pile up. They will impersonalize the process.
Did they only order guacamole? Because that's a cold.
Extra dude. Actually, maybe it would be profitable to just order extra guacamole 4 times and just pay $10 for an entire bowl filled.
Yeah, I need guacamole for my Super Bowl. I need guacamole for my Super Bowl party. I'm just gonna get delivery Chipotle of just 4 side orders of guac.
Just like no. Fill the bowl. Fill the whole bowl with it.
So what kind of burrito do you want? I don't want a burrito. No rice. No
Dude,
beans.
me and my friend Carrie, we always had the daydream of going into a Subway and just ordering a foot long with only mustard and mayonnaise.
Oh, you guys are gross.
Yeah, just a liquid sandwich.
That's a pervert meal. That is a
That is a perverted meal. It's a slight against God for sure.
So to wrap this up before we go into our next thing, and we guys, I want to quickly introduce what we have next. We have a comedian that we all know from the scene, and also a former banker who's going to be coming in. Our first guest on Ponzi Scream, Daniel J. Perafan.
Yes!
And he's going to talk to us about whatever he's going to talk to us about. I don't want to introduce that too much more, but to wrap this all up, I guess I wanted to say we are in a crisis moment, and right now all three of us are rereading or reading for the first time the Shock Doctrine, and I think that this is a moment when the economy is basically in a coma, and there are just going to be a huge number of firms that are going to be attempting to do things like mergers and acquisitions. And this is the precise moment where someone would take advantage of that, where Uber and Grubhub, who are both suffering dramatically, would both try to take advantage and consolidate. That way, when we get out of this crazy economy, there could just be an insane amount of market consolidation. And that is something that we all need to kind of be vigilant for, and hoping that, there's a couple congressmen. I know that like Ocasio-Cortez and Warren and this guy David Cicilline have called for an end to all non-essential mergers and acquisitions during coronavirus. And they're doing that because they're calling for that because basically we need to start thinking about what sort of an economy we want to have when we get out. And if it's just going to, do we want it to be worse or better? Do we want all the horrible things about the previous economy to just be magnified, or do we want to use this as an opportunity to really dramatically restructure?
Nah, dude. This is what I want. All of the public school teachers to be fired and to have one teacher for every grade. Brought to you by Kumon.
Wait, that's a fucking company with the goofy face on it. That's just sort of like,
and it's
like, right?
And it's all tele online learning.
I'm sorry,
dude. You're
come on, kids. That's disgusting.
It's Kumon, bro.
Kumon.
Start with Jimmy Savile, end with Jimmy Savile.
Look, if you're in middle school,
yes.
you know it's come on. All right, there's
they just call it C''MON, and it's just come on. Why don't you want to learn?
You don't want every shuttered storefront in New York City to open up as a TD Bank / HSBC / Bank of America.
Which are actually
Taco Bell,
yeah.
Which are actually just all owned by J.P. Morgan Chase.
Yeah,
but they're just like different brands of that. Yeah, we don't want that, I guess, right? So
no,
that's all I had to say. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just saying like news break. It's bad, folks. It's not good, folks. It's not good.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's this has been the food segment of Ponzi Scream. Now let's go to Daniel J. Perafan with some other crazy shit.
Let's go. I'll just stand the whole time like a creep. Look, I'm standing over you guys like a creep.
I love it, dude.
Blooming.
So we brought on Daniel today to present to us a lecture on something, and that's why he's looming over us right now. And Daniel, what are you going to lecture us about today? What's the subject?
Nothing. I want to clarify for a couple things. This is just mostly if you're running a cash business and you needed to introduce cash to a legitimate business. This is in no way intended to be used for anything that you're using to avoid taxes or anything of the sort. So this is just, I want to clarify, that's what I'm doing. I'm just explaining you, if you had a cash business to say like stand up, how you would integrate that cash.
Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. Love into hot integration of cash.
What are other things that would be a cash business that you would want to integrate into a quote unquote legitimate business?
I'm not even saying quote unquote legitimate. I'm just saying just a legitimate business like stand up. Let's just say I like using stand up because it's a perfect example. It's a mostly cash business, and it's one of those businesses where you wait. Hold on, look at the cat. Oh, she's so cute. Oh, bitch. It's the best thing about stand up is it's a mostly cash business. You have to integrate funds a certain way, etc. So, do you just want to get into it or what?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
I'm curious about your background a little bit.
Oh, yeah. To give you a little bit of background on me, I have been in banking about 10 years. I have my Series 6, 63, and life. I have been in finance about 10, 11 years in general. I have, during my
do you work
peak
for
times.
you would want to know that we would any banks that we would know about.
Oh, yeah, JP Morgan Chase. That's not a big deal. Yeah, I can say that. That's on my record. You can pull that up. Every person who's licensed through FINRA has their licenses, like has where they've worked.
Interesting.
You're on broker check, is what you're saying.
Yes. If you want to go check me up right now after this, you could. And you could see how long I've worked, place, and things like that.
Here's the real question, though. Do you have a red dot by your name? Any red dots on broker check? Are you clean? I'm clean. I only worked at one firm. All right.
I got fired, but it was for a non-offense. So it was a non-offense firing.
Whoa,
Wait, what does that even mean?
Like I wasn't stealing. I didn't try to hide money, things like that.
What did you do?
I got fired for something stupid. Most of my boss didn't like me, and he really wanted to push me out.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, if you're on it is kind of funny that if you were on broker check, you might not have a red dot by your name if you I don't know, were beating off in the break room or something.
You're moving
around. Hold on, let me reverse that.
A little bit.
Yeah, you're.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It looks
I
like
think I really do need.
You need a chair. You really need a chair.
Yeah, you need a chair.
I had 9 cups of coffee.
Hell yeah, baby.
9 cups. Ferris Bueller, you've been late 9 times.
I'm Colombian. I have I'm not exaggerating. I had 9 cups today, and I had 9 cups yesterday, and I'm sure this is not good for my health.
So it looks like Daniel, it looks like you're no longer registered as a broker, but you were previously a registered broker.
Yes.
JP Morgan, and
that's right. Oh, you pulled me up? Yeah.
Yeah, I check broker check all the time. So that is all interesting to hear. And you were doing retail work, like you were working with normal.
Yes and no. I was doing anything within $250 to $1 million to $20 million. So anything once you get to $250,000 to $20 million. After $20 million, it's private bank. It's no longer us. So we were there was a program that came out. It was meant to cater to the people who were wealthy but weren't wealthy enough for private bank. For the longest time, there was a gap between this group of wealthy people that had millions of dollars, but it'd be like, I have 5 million, and the private bank would be like, fuck off, you're not shit. Who are you? Eat a dick. Mm-hmm. It's people with 20, 25 million. Yeah. 5 million? Yeah. Get the fuck out of my face. I don't want to see $5 million.
So you were doing portfolio management for these people.
Yeah. I was with them. Yes. I couldn't activate the trades. A lot of what I was doing was selling.
Okay.
So we would sit down, we would discuss what their financial interests were. Any single guy. The system has become so automated that how do I say this? Individualism is really out the window. It's more like cookie cutting investments. Unless you specifically say, I want this, there are age brackets, there are risk brackets, there are income brackets. Everything is it depends now. Or we think this would be good for you. And even if you, the individual, wanted nothing but high risk at 91, let's say, for example, because you're 91 years old, you kind of have a lot of money left. You don't mind fucking with it. At 91, you would have to really push the company and say, I want this. And the company might actually still be like, we don't want to sell you that. Because the risk is so high on the company side, they intentionally have these cookie cutter programs. If your income if you have $100,000, but it seems like you don't have enough for a 6-month nut, we won't, like, a lot of times people will be like, the investing doesn't seem right for you. I'm sorry. You have to maintain a 6-month nut. And if back office will be the ones to be like, I'm sorry, you can't do anything with this guy. Recently, there's been a rise, and this mostly became with people with millennial peoples who just don't have that much liquidity, but have $20,000 or have $30,000. And before, people would come up to me like that, like, what can I do? I'd be like, I don't know, go fuck yourself. I can't do shit for you. I don't make money off you. Not to sound rude, but like, I can't. They weren't my focus. My focus was people within the at least like 75,000. Because if someone has 75,000, they have 25,000 to keep in cash and $50,000 to invest. No one's going to invest all their assets, and they can't most of the time because they have to fill out sort of a financial questionnaire. Like people with $100,000 were great. I really wanted $300,000 up. Like I wanted to get as much money as I could off one person.
And so, what made you get out of the game? You said you haven't been employed since last December, and that's what this firing you're talking about. Just hate capitalism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Cannot deal.
Daniel is he's making very normal and unlascivious motions via the Zoom call that you guys can just want to. Now I have a question. I have a question here actually. So you were telling me that you at least have a recognition for people who are they have like 75K minimum to maybe upwards of a couple 100,000 to deal with, something like that. Is there any moment in sort of that bracketeering of money, lower or higher or right in there, where you sort of notice a change in the personality?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I can tell you right off the bat who has money, who doesn't, who knows what they're doing, who doesn't. Really? There's a really big difference. In fact, it depends. There are people with money who are in the business who are complete selfish jackasses, but are good to deal with because they already know, they have an idea. It's like having a personal trainer. There are guys who are cut up and jacked with no personal trainers, and there are guys who are cut up and jacked with a personal trainer.
Yeah.
It all depends on the person.
Okay.
And sometimes the personal trainer likes working with the guys who are cut up and jacked because they already know the basics. They can get into advanced shit. Or and there are also the jackasses who are like jacked, but usually on T. Those two are the only ways I can really equate it. There are some people who get rich and invest on their own and making everything just fine. One of my partners, Tim Brennan, so he and I worked at the same location, and he was one of the guys I loved working with because he taught me a lot, and so did Gary Pell, another financial advisor. They both taught me a lot of the game, and Tim Brennan would often talk to me about like some of these guys. They come in there and they don't want to pay any fees. They don't want to pay management fees, brokerage. I assume everyone who's listening to this already understands the fee breakdown and stuff.
Reasonably so. I mean,
you can explain it.
Talk to us like we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Every firm has a different breakdown of fees depending on how much you're investing, how much you have in general, what kind of programs you're in, things of that nature. So like there's a percentage fee for the actual physical broker. There's a management fee. There's a portfolio fee. Some of those fees, depending on the money you bring in, can be waived. So it's a sliding scale. So let's say, for example, you brought in $1 million. They might drop a percentage, or they might drop a point of a percentage. But it's also it works in two ways. So some of the retirees, my bread and butter was getting retirees to roll over their 401ks. That was incredible because I felt morally justified. A lot of times people don't know what to do with their old retirement, old 401k programs. They just don't know. And I'm willing to bet, statistically speaking, one of the four of us, but one of the three of you, probably either has an old one somewhere or just liquidated an old one because they didn't know what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I felt morally justified. They always talk about like how these guys are scumbags, etc. We are, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there's a moral justification because that's your money. You don't know what's going to happen. If you leave it in the hands of your old company, you'll have zero idea what to do with it. You're going to have zero idea of what it's doing for you. You don't know how it's being invested. The average person, and I'm talking about, I work downtown. I worked with people who were highly educated, people in different fields of the finance business. So just because you're great at accounting at JP Morgan doesn't mean you necessarily know about investments. Just because you're an analyst doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at doing everything hands-on. Some people do want a second person, and that goes back to the nature of the trainer. It'll go back and like some guys think they know it all, and those are usually the idiots. And some guys are jacked and they come with a trainer and they can maximize everything they have. A lot of it depends on how. Over there.
It's just funny because I just was not expecting this conversation to be about how to size up people. I like it though. This is like
no. This is incredibly fascinating to me, and also very illuminating. That it sort of sounds like what you're saying is that you'll have people who are in the industry of finance who will have money that they can kind of play around with, and they might still not even know exactly how that system works. Or
100%. But it's no different than a guy that goes to the gym and might be cut up but doesn't know how to get jacked.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is so wild because
that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Just because you know how to get cut doesn't mean you know how to get jacked, and vice versa. So you might. That's so stupid. But a gym trainer is the easiest way to equate it for everybody because it's a good idea. That's all it is.
What about like stand-up versus improv? Is that something? Is there any sort of analogy that you can draw there?
Okay.
Yeah.
An improv coach. Oh God, I got fat. All right.
Daniel, before we go on, do you have a TV on in the background?
Yeah, should I turn it off?
Yes.
Yeah, that might be beneficial.
I've been begging for someone else to say it the whole time.
Is it because it has Spanish?
Caso
cerrado.
Yeah.
Just for sound quality.
Yeah.
Hey, can you lower the TV?
No.
Please. Oh, you got me.
No.
I don't talk. I'm with.
You're louder than the TV.
I'm with the fellas.
There.
Podcast.
It's all staying in.
I can't lower the TV right. Thank you, Diana.
That's so good. That's actually a little bit better. I can. That's actually pretty good. Okay. So you were talking about fees earlier. You were talking about fees. So,
no, it's a percentage fee. So as you can imagine, and this is something that a lot of people don't really realize if you've never invested before, you're going to be charged a fee by the company. The company is going to charge you a fee to access its books. It's like saying
fees a lot. We've talked about brokerage fees versus advisory fees and stuff like that.
Correct.
Small amount. I mean, when we're talking about like standards of conduct. Thing. I mean, so for Daniel, I write about basically about compliance and litigation in the.
I saw one of the articles. It was forwarded to me. You write for Intercept?
No, I don't write for the Intercept. I write for this trade publication that.
Danny, you write for the
No.
Sorry.
We're all on the left spectrum of these things. And generally speaking, the Intercept, you would say, is on that left. So you can kind of assume.
So what we wanted to talk about with you, Daniel, is this is a white-collar crime podcast. And when you first approached me, you said that you had some dirt. You wanted to talk about some naughty behavior. You wanted to talk about any I know you meant I sent you something that I just saw about money laundering and any like sort of money laundering stuff that you have to be careful of when you're a banker. You don't have to admit to any crimes, but if you saw, if you tell me a bit like what is like the money laundering complaint?
David, I'm going to have to turn you down there, and I can say officially that I cannot tell you about money laundering, how to commit money laundering. All I can tell you is if you had a cash business and you wanted to, because you get paid in cash as a stand-up comedian, and then you wanted to take that cash and start up a small business, I can show you how to do that. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you anything about money laundering or how to do that.
So, Daniel, let's say I made $200,000 in
stand-up comedy.
In stand-up comedy.
I
And
am
I don't wanna
the most
keep it.
successful comic ever.
And I've been
all
hiding it in a Bustelo coffee cans
That's not.
for a year.
That's not okay. So let's say, for example, fine, that can happen, right? Let's say you're doing stand-up comedy. You're someone like Dan Nanan is a good example, who do a lot of corporate gigs, high-end gigs, and you can get paid large amounts of money. Or let's say, for example, you're getting paid $100 a set, which is not impossible.
Not
Right?
impossible.
Right.
$100 a set. You're doing 3 sets a night. That's $300 a week. That's $2,100 every single week. That's $8,400 a month. Over the course of a year, that's about, what is that? 8, 16, 32. That's about $96,000 a year, something like that, right?
Something
Yeah.
like that.
And
100
Daniel,
100.
I ended up taking some of that money to Atlantic City, and I doubled it.
Yeah.
Physical cash, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's just say you doubled the $106,000 that you got from stand up, and now you have $212,000 in cash. You're a little suspicious. You're kind of wary. You don't know what to do, right? So you would, before anything, and you just happen to take all that money, put it away. You know what's so sad? This is not an impossible scenario for comedians.
That's right.
Because
Because I was doing a casino gig, and then I was drunk, and I put all of my money on a fight.
Gabe, that's so unlike you.
Okay, so now I have $212,000 that I've made through stand-up. The first thing I'm going to want to do, let's just say I have nothing and I got this money. This happens all the time. This is very plausible, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my business account. Before I can set up a business account, though, at a bank, I'm going to have to register with it with the IRS to set up an EIN, an employer identification number.
Yes.
That is usually the easiest way to do it. There's different forms of structures and setups. For easy purposes, we're going to go with a sole proprietorship. There are a bunch of different structures. There's LLPs, LLCs. There's member managed LLCs. There's a bunch of different types. I used to also be on the business banking side, so I understand pretty much every side of the equation.
Cool.
So we're going to go nice and easy. This is a sole proprietorship. So you happen to have all this money that you made from stand-up over the course of a year. You put it under your mattress. You just forgot about it. Oh, shit, I have $212,000 to put away. You're going to have to go on the IRS website. Go on www.irs.gov.
IRS.gov. Yeah.
Correct.
Nice.
And now, just as a side note to everyone listening, the IRS wants you to pay taxes. They love when you pay taxes.
They're horny for it.
They are horny for it. They make it as easy for you to get a tax ID number than any other function of the U.S. They want businesses to pay taxes. They want individuals to pay taxes. They want you to be able to do this. So they make it like this to get. When I say seconds, it takes seconds.
Hard to get a voter registration card. Easy to get
a tax card.
EIN card.
Yeah.
So you go.
You got an EIN and a tax card.
EIN. You can just go EIN.
Okay, cool.
You get the EIN from the website.
Gotcha.
So you can get a tax ID number, but it's a little more complicated, and that has more to do with when you're a individual non-citizen. It's more difficult. But let's keep it easy for business purposes, right? You're a U.S. citizen for business purposes. You go on there, you try to get an EIN. There's a couple options. You can take your social and you plug it in, and they'll give you an EIN automatically. It takes 3 seconds. You literally plug it in. They give you a little PDF piece of paper form and the actual number.
Love it.
You take that number. Yeah, it's that easy.
Wow.
Then you can take that number, and most banks, when it comes to business accounts, because they have to flag for anti-money laundering, as of right now, most banks, if not all of them, and I say most just in case, there's some bank or two that does allow it, but I'm pretty sure that it's all banks. For business accounts, you have to come in person.
Okay.
And it's because they have to flag you for money laundering purposes, et cetera, right?
Sure.
So we still have a sole proprietorship. And that's the sole proprietorship, just the background info for everyone. It's the majority of business accounts set up in the nation, in the entire nation. That is the majority of accounts set up.
Wow.
So
I have a sole proprietorship.
There you go. It's 75% of them. It's the easiest setup. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. So now I have the EIN, but don't forget that EIN is attached to your social, okay? So just, in the records of the IRS, for anyone listening to this, it is attached to them somehow. it also has the most liability. So if you can get sued, if you're a sole prop, you can get sued for everything.
Yeah.
Which is why people set up different corporate or business structures in the first place.
That's why Delaware comes into play.
That is also a thing, but the problem with Delaware is everyone claims that they're cheap on taxes, which they are. They nickel and dime you when it comes to documents. So you're paying $10 to $15 for a state registration form. Imagine how many businesses set that up. That's $15 right there. Boom, right off the bat. Every single form you need them is a charge. So think of all the businesses that set up there with PO boxes. It's how they're not stupid as a state. They're like, hey,
Delaware is like a numbers situation. They're sort of like, we're gonna sell a million. We're gonna sell 1 million dime bags. That's how we make our nut.
Yes, yeah. It's like any burger stand that sells 1 million patties or whatever. Okay, so
you talk to the bank, and the bank sees
your
and
no, you can
set up a sole prop account with.
Correct. Now, one of the things that a lot of people might not know is on the other side of the bank, there is it is the classification number that is attached to your individual business. Every single business in the country has a classification number, or at the very least a close proximity. They do it for tax purposes. They do it for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So this is the part you're not seeing. It's behind the screen. So the guy's clicking this thing. He's going to ask you about your business. He's going to ask you a bunch of questions. This is always going to happen. They're going to want to poke holes in your story on purpose. They want to know if you're money laundering.
Yeah.
I guess between us, like a greedy banker won't really give too much of a shit if you come in with $2,000 in cash and say, hey, I'm a stand-up comic. I just want to do this. They might be excited and be like, I want to do stand-up too. But for the most part, they'll take your $2,000. They'll forget about you. You're a fucking nobody, right?
Yeah. If you have 200.
They'll even guess. They might not even open the account if it's 200 because they'll be like
200,000. Sorry, I'm at 200,000.
Well, we're gonna get to that in a second.
Okay.
So, hold on. So right now you're just at the bank and they're gonna classify it. A lot of banks, a lot of the main banks, non-credit union banks, and that's important, will not take certain codes, certain industry codes to set up bank accounts. So, for example, the pornographic industry or the stripper industry, which I know sounds silly. But for ethical reasons, a lot of banks will not set up those types of accounts.
I know what you're talking about because in my business license, I had to choose a specific type of like 6-digit number that defines the code of what you're talking. So that's what Daniel's referring to in this case. So if they see one that's like 076541, which means like I'm a party guy, like they're just like, no, we're not doing that. You know? But
then here's the thing: so they don't do pornographic, they don't do strippers, and they don't do pot businesses.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
And again, they on their side of the screen, they're plugging this in, not you. They're not going to trust you to do it because you'll lie to them. They poke holes in your story about your business. What do you do? How long are you doing that? Oh, that's nice. Tell me more. What got you into that? What makes you want to do that? 5-10 minutes of questions, getting to know your business, blah blah. And then they kind of get a general idea of what you do, and then they go like, where's the majority of your money coming from? Because you might be like, I'm a stand-up comic, but also when I'm on the road, I sell my CDs. And they might go, how would I classify that? Are you a radio DJ or you're more of a stand-up comic? You know, a little more information, blah, blah. You kind of be nice. Oh, the majority of money comes from stand-up. Okay, fine, blah, blah. Sure. So you're selling merch on the road, but you're also doing stand-up. It's mostly stand-up. So you're doing that, and you're plugging in this information. They find out the code is fine. One of the things is you have to have 2 forms of valid ID. Duh. I mean, who doesn't know that?
Sure. Yeah.
They might or might not scan it into the system. They're going to ask you your address, things like just basic shit.
And this is all to prove that you are a legitimate business.
Kind of. Yeah, like that second part is the easiest part because they're trying to get to know you, make sure you have that. But also on the other side is they're trying to know what to sell to you. Don't forget, you might get tripped up based on what they want to sell to you too.
This is really interesting because I think people think about the banking process and whatever, and they'll think like, oh yeah, banks they're these impersonal sort of just sort of beings that they just exist and approve it, and but there's apps. It sounds like anyway that there's like this intense vetting that really
100%.
Yeah,
especially because some businesses are prime for money laundering.
Yeah.
So those businesses specifically, because they're high risk, sometimes they'll charge them more money. Sometimes they will intentionally ask you. They'll ask you what kind of transactions do you think you're going to do. So I'm a stand-up comic. I'm getting paid mostly in cash. You might tell them that, and they go, well, for more cash than X amount, we're going to charge you an extra fee to handling your cash because of the risk involved. And you're going to go, fuck you, fine. That's one of the unfortunate parts.
What are some of the businesses that are especially prone to money laundering?
Oh, owning an ATM.
Owning an ATM.
Which you can do. By the way, I was actually approached for one. You have to own a bunch of them, and you have to have the right location. But you can. They're what we call a turnkey operation.
Wow.
To really make money, you have to own a bunch of them. It's like owning a vending machine.
I wanted to own a vending machine. That was a thing I wanted to do.
Yeah. And you can hire a company to take care of it.
Yeah. Dude, I wanted to, for a longest time, I was trying to figure out, I want to get a vending machine full of a standard Coca-Cola one, get a vintage one, and then put a lot of random shit in it and just put it in the middle of Times Square, and then have
when they smash it open.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's I love the idea of going in and getting all the quarters, but I can see what you're saying. That's a huge cash-based business. It's
So
that's
ATMs,
one.
Yeah, what else?
ATMs, vending machines, anything with high cash. I think also, what's the one? It's laundromats and laundromats. Literally money laundering. How you doing, guys?
Yeah.
All right. I'm so sorry. And what's car mechanics? Think of how often cash businesses happen there, because they can easily tie things together.
Restaurant.
That can happen too. I mean, that's easy, but that's one of the ones that everyone kind of knows. Restaurants do that all the time. It fucking sucks. We get so mad at them because those are the assholes that come in for loans, and we're like, okay, let's look at your tax returns, and their tax returns are like, we made $10,000 all last year. Like, go fuck yourself. You didn't do that. Restaurants and dry cleaners are such dick. I'm sorry. I know this is a side note to all this. Restaurants and dry cleaning businesses are dicks. They are dicks. They fucking never file taxes correctly, and they always want loans to help out their business. Hey, moron, you fucking the taxes is how we depend. We know what to lend you. You jackass, look at your taxes. You have nothing for us. I can't help you. Go fuck yourself.
Dude, that makes total sense. Those restaurant guys are the biggest big head dudes where it's yeah, dude, I'll fucking run a steakhouse, all right? It's legit.
Yeah. Hey, what are you talking about? Think of all the mafia guys that have restaurants. It's because you can easily palm money at them.
God, yeah. And then, I mean, even the guys who are legitimate, they just have, they got the small business head where they're just...
Yeah, they hide taxes. Yeah. Happens all the time.
I believe that. I very much believe that.
So it's important to note that when you're being interviewed by the banker in front of you, they're going to ask you questions about the business to sell to you, right? That's an important part.
Yeah.
And this is, and also just get to know you a little bit because they want to be able to build a relationship with you. And a lot of times business owners, from our standpoint, business owners are cash cows because they have multiple businesses. So the more money they bring over, the more money we make, et cetera, et cetera. The more money the bank makes, blah, blah. This is where people really fuck up because this is where things can go wrong. They're the first line of defense and one of the strongest lines of defense. So they'll go up there and they'll ask you, hey, how long have you been a stand-up for? And I go, 3 years. Oh, neat. My cousin does that. Do you work at Gotham? And then I go, I just want to open this, and then you as a banker go, huh? Why? In my head, I wouldn't say it out loud. I'm like, why'd you pause? Then I go, oh, okay. Then I start digging more holes in your story. I go, well, let me ask you this. You've been doing that for 10 years. What'd you do before that? And you get a little sweaty. You go oh, I just been working all around. Oh, and then I go, he told me he's been doing this 3 years. Little questions like that. Everything is, they actually train us. They tell us you have to ask about the business, and if you notice them flustering, things like that, you don't react yourself. You kind of either excuse yourself after the process. You kind of go, I'm going to get paperwork. You go to your boss and goes, hey, I think this guy's a piece of shit or something. And a lot of times the bank,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, fuck. Oh, you should have heard some of the shit I would say.
This is extraordinary. The amount of psychology and just like interrogation, like
it happens. Yes, we have to know because businesses are the number one, are heavy when it comes to money laundering.
Yeah, it's more common than like art. Like one thing that I always think of when I think of money laundering, I always think of art because it's an asset that is really hard to place a value on. So I always feel like this would be such a perfect thing for money laundering because it's just like, this is just no. This makes me feel good. This reminds me of my childhood. I'm going to pay $20 million for it, even though it's some random thing.
But there's so many different classifications of money laundering. So that's where things get tricky. So with the art world, that money has to be in a bank account already. We're talking about the very physical basics of getting the $20 that you got paid for, or in our case, our scenario we had earlier, $212,000. So I'm opening that account. The banker kind of believes me. He has no reason not to believe me. He takes my IDs. He scans them in the system. They have your information, blah, blah. Now, it is January 1st, 2020. That's when I first started this. He didn't ask me questions like, how will you get paid? I get paid in cash. It's a cash-heavy business. Okay, I'm aware of that. You give him $2,000. So now you have $210,000 left to put away, right? Including any more money you have. You can't. There's certain amounts of money here that will automatically trigger a bank investigation. In the first 60 days, any bank account is more likely. Bank accounts are more likely to create fraud than any other time. There is no time higher outside a regular bank account that's being watched than the first 60 days. And
that makes sense.
And this can include. This is just, we're talking about sole proprietorships, but we're talking about smaller businesses, things like that. But businesses that you say you have a retail front door. Let's say, for example, you say you're a dry cleaning business. Let's say, for example, you say you're a restaurant. I own a restaurant. We do mostly cash, and we're very successful. The banker, the person in front of you might go, oh, cool, neat, whatever. You might know the restaurant business. You might bullshit me up and down the street. You might lie. That's another part that people don't think about, too, is addresses. The computer system knows, they have Google Maps. The system automatically checks for the address to be your real address. So you have to have a physical location. If you're a sole proprietorship, you use your home address. If you are, or if a business doesn't really have a home, if you operate your house, your home. That's it. Nice and easy. If you tell someone, let's say you have a good business, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, some things don't add up. There's some questions about your business. They take back office. They have guys that go out and go to your physical location.
That's what I was wondering about. I was like, are they going to
do that?
They send goons. They send goons out.
They send bank goons.
So one thing that
Pinkertons.
Yes.
I was always wondering about how much of this is automated, because from what I've looked into, money laundering they have all these like compliance procedures, but you make it seem like on the day-to-day, broker to client relationship, it's very subjective. It's very
here's the thing. It can be. That's the thing. I'm not talking about millions. A lot of this is automated too. A lot of them have internal checks. A lot of them double check your address. A lot of them is like, this seems kind of fishy. This address doesn't seem correct. Please give us proof. We need evidence. The system will pick things up right away.
Okay.
But there are second and third lines of defenses. The system is kind of the first line. You, the banker, are definitely one guy. If you don't feel comfortable about something because the business is so easy to red flag, you can just tell your boss and be like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Or you can call business services and they can red flag it and they double check everything. And a lot of times you just close shit out and go, here's your money back, go get fucked. And when they mail you back the money you open the account with, they'll mail it back to your address you gave them. And we go fuck yourself. That's not my business. You gave me that address, fuckface.
And will you report it as well to the authorities?
I don't think the back office does that because that's not necessarily the bank's job. We just the bank goes, we don't feel comfortable with this. We're allowed to not feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable we have the right to not have business with you.
Gotcha.
Is there sort of like a lack of culpability issue there when it comes to like just the proliferation of illegitimate businesses and the bank just sort of being like, it's not really our job to be a regulatory agency. We'll let the FBI deal with that.
That's the thing. It is the bank's job to be regulatory, not regulatory per se, but it is the bank's job to ask these questions. These are part of the Homeland Security upgrades that happened. I'm not sure if you're familiar with HSBC. What happened back? I think
I am.
Oh, okay. Remember, they had their entire line of business shut down. They weren't allowed to open business accounts at all. An entire line of business for HSBC was shut down because they had virtually no money laundering checks in place.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was. For people who don't know, this was a big story. There's even
It was a big deal.
It was a
What was
Netflix
it?
like if you go on Netflix and you watch Dirty Money, it's one of their episodes about HSBC. How it's basically
I gotta watch that. Fuck yeah,
dude! It was like a low key drug front or like drug money situation.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
When was it? When did they get it shut down?
I want to say like 2015, 2016 is when this was happening, right?
Yeah, they shut them. It was, I forget. I know it was on the double odds, double digits once.
Yeah.
So they shut down that line completely, and HSBC's like lost a shit ton of revenue from that.
Yeah.
They're a mostly Chinese bank though, so it's not like they have money. They're somewhat big here. They're based in Hong Kong, I think, actually. So
Yeah, they are.
So now I have $2,000 in the bank. I've waited a week, and now I have $210,000 in the wings waiting. So there are a couple of options. I could walk in with $210,000 in cash. If I do that, I cannot stress this enough. You will be flagged in every way possible. There will be so many red flags. Sorry.
Okay.
You just cannot come into a bank with
No.
100K cash.
You
They do not like that.
cannot. That is, they do not like that you are flagged. Usually you are barred from the industry completely because they go, where did you get this?
Yeah. We do not
And you
do not
say
like this.
stand-up comedy.
Yeah, you know the business of lucrative stand-up comedy? Yeah. Even if it is legitimate, a bank has the right to be like, this is kind of weird. We don't feel comfortable sharing our businesses with you.
I mean,
Remember, a bank is a private organization. They don't have to have you as a member of it. So they, on the bank side, could just say, even if it's all legitimate, even if you just put your money away, even if you just put your money away from start to finish safely and just had it in your apartment and just forgot about it, and you did that, the bank is allowed to be like, we don't care if this is. We're not doing business with you. And chances are any single bank will do that. They will report you to – yeah.
How do you do it then? How do you get away with it?
You mean how do you –
How can you put the $210,000 that you legally
have left? Yeah, you legally own away.
That you legally own, that you legally acquired from stand-up comedy and gambling and blowjobs.
Away. Okay.
And how do you put that away? How do
so
you
there's a couple. Here's the thing. So here's the kind of issue. And this is where everyone kind of fucks up. You can't get greedy. It's going to take you at least 3 years.
Slow deposits.
They have to be slow deposits, and they have to be within the amount of money you tell the business banker that you're making. There are different types of money laundering just schemes. There's structuring. There's structuring. There's layering. So one is if I go to a different bank and put some money in and write a check. There's different fraud types. One thing you could do is I can go and set up a bank account at Chase, at Citibank, and at Bank at Chase and Bank of America.
Oh, okay.
There's a system called check systems. So check systems is the system that every single bank works off of. And when I say every single one, it's every single one that's not a credit union. If you get burnt on check systems, you get burnt in the entire industry. So that means you cannot open up anything. A lot of times they'll even do, if you're a partner in a business, they will shut everything down.
Okay, and so it seems like credit unions have been singled out for the second time. Is it easier to money launder? Excuse me. Is it easier to avoid anti-money laundering risk compliance, even though you're following with a credit union?
No, they operate. They still have internal checks, and they still have a lot of that. They just operate outside the district of banks, so they don't work on the same check systems. They have their own thing going. They're private institutions sometimes. Just that is really important to know because they still are just as effective as banks because they're still just as liable as banks. So they're still held to the same standards. Because if they were ever audited or given bank exams, they can get in trouble for not following up a procedure.
I see.
So the only reason I say that is because they just operate on things that aren't check systems and things of that nature. So you could still be burnt with a bank and get a thing like that, or get a rush card, which is just cannot tell you how awful those are. They suck. I feel so bad for people with rush cards.
What is a rush card?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh, so we're putting a pin in the first part of this. That's money you have. We still have $10,000 money to put away, right?
Yep.
So let's say when you're someone who has burnt a bank before, so that means you've been flagged for some suspicious activity. You have there's a fraud thing that goes around. So what happens is sometimes some people will wash checks and make fake paychecks. Sometimes people will even work with you at a job site, and they'll get to know you as a buddy. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of this shit. They'll get to know you as a friend. And then they say, do me a favor, bro. Can you cash this check for me? I can't cash it because I don't have a bank account. You go, sure. It's $2,200. You deposit it in your account. You give me the cash because the ATM lets you have access to it. I walk away with $2,200, and you get flagged in banking system for the rest of your life. Sometimes
Oh my God.
Yeah, sometimes it's 5 years when you're young. I think when you're 18 or 19, they usually do it 5 years. So anything after 5 years is like 5+.
What if you give me a check for $2,200? I deposit it, then I only withdraw $1,800.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter any amount.
Wow.
So you just get flagged because you put in I get flagged because
you put in a fake check. Yeah.
Oh, because the check is not real. Okay.
No, it's a wash check. It's a fake check.
Got it.
Those are wash checks, fake checks. When you steal a check and deposit in your account, that's your responsibility. The bank account's tied to your social.
Can you
how come they give the money though if the check is fake? Why do they?
It's just the way the system automatically fronts you because they can't verify the funds for a couple days. So they'll let you have access to either some of it or the majority, or if not all of it.
What if you say it's a bounced check?
They know already because it's the check is coming from another bank. They usually don't do unless the check is fraudulent based on an account at that bank because they had access to the account and they found a way to hack in the system, and then they had a bunch of fake checks, real checks from the account that are fraudulently printed.
Wow.
So they put it in, they get a bunch of guys to cash these fake checks, and they fuck everyone over.
What if I get a fake check from somebody legitimately in a service I'm providing, and then
that has happened?
You know,
wow.
So
That happens. That happens.
I can't say, hey guys, like you know.
You can kick up dust. More often than not, I have seen it not be turned over. I would hate to sound like this, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully because I know this is being recorded.
Yeah.
When that happens, if you go to the wrong neighborhood,
yeah,
you will be tossed aside, and they will go, you have to call this number, good luck, and they can fuck off. If you go to a poor neighborhood and you explain to them, a lot of times they'll call a back office and they'll try to actually fight for you. So I've seen, and I'm going off specific cases that I've seen.
So what you're saying is, sorry, to clarify, a bank in a low-income neighborhood is going to be more likely to have your back, whereas a bank in a richer neighborhood will just tell you to go fuck yourself.
I'm going off personal experience.
That's fine.
Yeah, anecdotal.
And so why do you think that is?
I can get a lot more money off a dude who's going to invest $100,000. This kid comes in here and tells me he got a fake check. I hear the story all the time. Yeah, kid, whatever. Here's the number. Good luck. We don't waste any time with them because the more time I'm wasting on this kid who I know is lying to me, because I know this kid's lying.
Yeah.
A 19-year-old tells me, oh, this guy gave me a check. And I go, yeah, okay. Yeah, here's the number. Good luck. I've also had the opposite happen. I think like 4 times ever. I've had guys say that. It actually turned out to be true. Or, yeah, like, so I was, and I'll give you some background on me and one of the reasons I know the difference, and it taught me a little more empathy. So I was brought up in downtown Wall Street area. So I dealt with rich of the rich, like some top guys, millions of dollar guys. And then for whatever reason, I got, for lack of a better word, demoted to a poor neighborhood.
Because of your political beliefs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your boy got drunk at work too many times.
Yeah, you work at the
They couldn't turn a blind eye that many times.
You're like, why is Daniel drinking Red Bull again?
They would, let me tell you something. When I was making money, when I was one of the highest producing guys in the entire downtown area, they turned blind eye to my drinking all the time.
Sure.
All the time. Why would they fucking dig at it too much?
How many cups
none of their
of coffee
business?
are you having a day? How many cups?
Oh, a bunch. I also was drinking. I was doing crazy shit. When I was making money for downtown Manhattan, I would take the phone. When I had a bad phone call, I would slam it across the fucking wall.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
I would throw tantrums. I would fucking take it up like that. I wouldn't give a shit. And people, for the most part, they turn a big blind eye because you're a moneymaker, so they don't give a shit. I would curse out the advisors because I'm like, I have a guy that was $100,000, and one of the guys would be like, I can't make the meeting on Friday. I was like, make the fucking meeting, and I would hang up on him like a dick.
You're fucking Wolf of Wall Street. It's hilarious.
Yeah, but I was like I was in the wrong. I should have been in the and I'll give you more background later. But I was in a great place with a great team. We're all making money, and that's when the stock market was up. And when shit started going down, that's when they were like, "Oh, are you drunk at work?" You know, like when I wasn't producing, like it's like maybe you were not, because they can't say you're drunk at work, but they can be like, maybe we think you're a better fit here. So I got moved out, but I still came in with my cocky, arrogant swagger, and that shit did not fly.
Where were you? Where you moved to in New York?
Fuck. Near a block away from Woodhall.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay. All right.
That's,
Yeah.
Just for context, everybody, Daniel's referring to the Woodhull Medical Center. It's kind of at the corner of Flushing and Broadway, over at the intersecting points of Bushwick and Bedford-Stuyvesant, which are two prominent neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And spoiler alert, it doesn't have a great reputation. It has been known as not a great hospital. So it's very likely that the banking services around it could potentially suffer from the same problems that it does, just for context.
I was by City Hall in downtown Manhattan, and I got moved to Woodhall. Yeah, so you know the area. So I was dealing with that kind of neighborhood. And it's like I used to go from when every time we had a fake check, we could pretty much brush off the person. Or if they had they would tell me things like $30,000 they want to invest, I'd be like, yeah, we can't help you. Which we would just be like, you're a waste of our time. Because if I went to my partners and said, this guy wants to invest $30,000, they'd look at me like I was stupid. You're like, I'm not going to invest $30,000. They're like, I'm not going to invest $30,000. That's stupid. Unless he has a mortgage or something else I can make money off of.
And so once someone sets up an account with you, they can still reach out to you to do investments-oriented stuff as well. There's no separation between the commercial banking, opening up a business account or opening up a personal account, and them just talking to you as the same person of being like, I want to invest this in this mutual fund or this private equity, fund or something like that. You would be in charge of that as well.
No, I wasn't the active manager on it, but I would be the one to sit down with the active manager. I was basically the person that would have to get these guys, get them to come in, make sure their money wasn't set aside for something. I wasn't wasting anyone's time. I would sit down, find out what their financial goals were, find out what their investment goals were, sit down with the guy, and we would make the portfolio. But don't forget, like I mentioned the first time, the portfolios were all basically cookie-cutter investments. They are specific to the individual and they're tailored, but a lot of the stuff is cookie-cutter. It's cookie-cutter mutual funds because they make the most amount of money on mutual funds.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't. When you buy stock from an advisor, it's like, what do they make, like $100? when you buy mutual funds from an advisor, they earn a trailer fee. They have management fees. That's what their real money is. Or if you buy an annuity, they earn certain percentages fees too.
Well, that's something that we've talked about quite a bit in the podcast. How the whole fee structure can just be so all over the place, and that's where a lot of just like white collar crime really piles up when you have a client who's like, messing around with like $10 million, $20 million, $30 million and stuff. The amount of money that the people who are managing it can make with fees, it could be astronomical.
Yeah, because especially if you do churning, which again, all these things are, it's a regulatory thing. You're not supposed to churn. You can't churn. Churning is when
churning is,
it's when you intentionally keep buying different mutual funds, buying and selling different mutual funds on purpose to try and increase your what's the word I'm looking for? Commission.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they do that a lot of these guys do that on purpose. But that's a fucking regulatory law, for lack of a better word. You're not supposed to do it. If you get caught, it goes on your permanent record. You're fucked, bro.
Your rush card.
Your what?
Your rush card.
Yeah, you're right. You get blacklisted from the industry.
You get a little.
That's
red dot.
it.
You get a red dot.
You're done. You might as well stop working in finance.
That's crazy.
Then you start thinking about law school.
No, then you start thinking about.
Yeah.
You start thinking about secondary finance firms. So those guys, they don't go away. They end up working at places like where I'm at right now, but I think my place is underwater now. A capital lending firm. So they'll lend capital to businesses, and businesses will thrive on that. And they're the people that they can't go to banks.
It's like a private asset manager.
Basically, it's think of it like these are short-term loans. These are cash management loans. I think they're called. They're CMAs, MCAs.
They're like payday loans, but for businesses.
Correct. They're paid back daily basis. The industry knows what they are. They're like, this is an unregulated industry. I would have my boss, as of 2 months ago, he would tell me, you can lie to the person. Lie to them. We're not regulated. His words. Those were his words to me.
Insane.
And you work there now?
No, I think the company went under. They didn't give me back my last paycheck, so.
What was the
they haven't returned any of my emails at all, so I'm like, I think this is done. Excel Capital.
Okay.
If I go work for them, I guess it's gonna be pretty awkward, huh?
Hey, I mean, it's like you should issue your paycheck.
So back to the money part, right? So let's say we have $210,000, and we wanted to take $210,000 and put that away, for example, right? So we're taking $210,000 and breaking it away. You can't have too much money, again, because they're private organizations. They can tell you to fuck off, and they can tell you we just don't want to work with you anymore, right? Yes. So you're going to want to, and this is technically illegal. This is money laundering. You want to structure your deposits.
Yes, of course.
That's actually the term. It's called structuring. So what you do is you intentionally make deposits that will not be registered as a flag. Anything over $10,000 in cash. If you put in $9,999 in cash, if you put in any amount, if you adjust the amount because I told you there's going to be a report, I can put in a report. If you give me cash to buy a money order and or cashier's check, because you're going to want to throw that into the mix, because no one has a perfectly just cash business. Even a muffin shop will get once ever a money order or a check.
Yeah.
Once. They won't do it 1,000 times. They'll do it once or twice ever. Mm-hmm. There's specific rules for every industry. Like I'm a cash business. There's no reason I'm going to do an international wire. I have a damn good reason to do a wire transfer overseas. What's the point of my American-based business to have a wire overseas in the first place, right?
So we're talking about cash stuff. Have you ever run into clientele, people who you interact with, where you're like, all right, what's your how much capital do you have or whatever? And they're like, oh, I have $100,000. And it's like, oh, where is it? Where do you currently store it? And they're like, Well, $50,000 is actually tied up in a 1967 Fender jazz bass, and then another 20K is tied up in a gold bar that's about this big, and then another of that 30K is tied up in an incredibly rare painting. Like, do you ever get that kind of stuff?
Luckily, no. Although I have seen a million. Thank God, no. That sounds like a nightmare. I have seen
exotics. We should say, yeah.
I've seen $1 million in gold before. It's very small.
You know, it's only like this much in gold. It's only like maybe that much.
Yeah, it's very little. It's like a small box. A 3x5 box can fit it. That's about 16 inches long. I know because that's where he kept it. So I've seen $1 million in gold. It's not as impressive as it seems. It's really small amount.
But it's
yeah. Well, it's gold. So.
It's gold, baby.
It's gold.
So, Daniel, I wanted to ask you. I sent you this article in Intercept, and I wanted to ask you about what your thoughts are, because there's been a lot of banking deregulation. That this is getting a little political.
I saw that the BNP Paribas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wait, you're talking about? I was that one.
Yeah, not the one about the Paribas one about the.
You're talking about the Intercept article.
I'm talking about the Intercept article that I sent you that would asking the Federal Reserve and the FDIC to lower the community bank leverage ratio from 9 to 8%. Can you just quickly, as succinctly as you can, because we're really low on time, say what that means and how that would affect systemic risk in the economy?
There's different aspects, if I remember correctly, because it's been a long time since training school. It's the amount of money that a bank has to have on. I think that's Regulation D. Also, it's the amount of money a bank has to keep on file, handy, to handle any of their loans they're lending out.
Yeah,
especially with a lot of the changes.
Because banks are loaning to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, and they're trying to make their money do other things in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, they have to actually have like a chunk of real.
Correct.
Money.
Real physical money they're holding on to. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is the whole way of banks work in the first place. Here's like another like fucked up part. They are doing a lot of these regulatory laws. They can't invest other people's money. They can only invest their own money. But there's if enough changes happen, they can start investing other people's money, which they used to be able to do too, or at least a percentage thereof.
Rule, right? Is that like pre-Volcker rule?
Yeah, it's like old as shit. It's the fucking 1920 laws and shit. But that's not that. No one, especially now with this whole unprecedented issue we have, no one can say that's not a possible off the table thing.
Yeah,
that's the real fucked up part.
We're just in this politically. We're just in this time where everything's so moving. It doesn't. There's no stability. That these previously unthought of things that you couldn't mess with, that might massively destabilize larger segments of the economy and what have you. I mean, shit that sort of contributed to the housing crisis in 2008. They're on the table again.
Yes, but you're forgetting that the housing crisis happened because of some prime mortgages.
One flaw can link everything. So when you have things like Glass-Steagall and some sort of separation between things you can and cannot invest that a bank can and cannot invest, it lowers the level of systemic ties that one risky thing can have.
Right? Yeah, I mean it is a set of dominoes. I mean everyone's buying. They're all buying these securities from each other. Big firms buy securities from each other. They place options on things against each other. They're backing each other up. So one security backs the other, backs the other, backs the other. It really does become a domino effect. One, subprime mortgages pretty much collapse the entire financial system. Yeah. And it's a very easy way to trace it back to the original source. Two, that was a scary part. They just got greedy. That's all it was. There was no rhyme or reason for it. The individual who got the subprime mortgage was greedy, and the banks who were selling them got greedy. And for anyone that doesn't understand, as a nutshell, real quick, all it was back in the day was they took a bunch of mortgages and they sold it to the individual with no verification of assets. So you just told me how much you made. I believed you, And then I wrote that down, and we gave you a mortgage with essentially an adjustable rate mortgage. That balloons up after X amount of years.
Yeah.
Balloons.
Yeah, it was negligent. It was
absolutely on a criminal level. No one went to jail over it.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it.
What do you think, given the coronavirus economy, that there would be another financial crisis of this nature? What do you think what's the economy going to look like after coronavirus?
Okay, so here's a really fucking nifty part. I've been telling everyone their money to fucking buy. The best time is the best time you can get everything cheap. This is I was listening to David Annette, I think his name was, or Dan Cheng. He's one of the CFOs of he was on Yahoo Finance today, and he was talking about how there was already a 50% resurgence from the first time from the March low. So 50% of people with investments made back their money already, or like you got back 50% of the value back already, and it was so quickly, only a couple of weeks. So now the other second leg is just gonna be a little slower, but fine. The NASDAQ has pretty much almost hit its all-time highs that was back in March. They're back like a motherfucker because it's all digital services. Everyone and their mother has moved their money over to digital services. NASDAQ, we bounced like this. Bounce back. So it's only what they call the epicenters of the crash. So places like the travel industry, even banks.
Oil and gas.
Correct. Yeah, who got hit really hard. Those will come back, though. They said he had specifically mentioned that buying places that were at the epicenter of the crash, and this happened back in 2008, so there's evidence to back it up. If you had bought, even if you buy into the epicenter crash areas, you could still make a ton of money, even if there's another dip coming up, which presumably there's going to be another dip coming up. So buying now, even with a second dip, will still make you a lot of money. You just have to wait, 2 years? Who gives a shit? I'm thinking about investment. I'm thinking about investing 6 years down the line. If I'm buying something now, I don't mind holding on to it for 6 years against I have some kind of profitability to it. I can just follow the S&P also. There's so much you can do. It's better than the bank account.
Yeah.
So what you're thinking is that you don't think that the coronavirus is going to materially alter the structure of the financials of the economy?
Oh, no, I 100% think it will. I just don't think it's going to be as – I think that we're going to lose certain sectors and just other ones are going to pop back up. I think on average we're going to be just fine. Will there be losers? Absolutely. Yeah. Sears was a loser. If you look at Sears, they're a perfect example of a loser. Macy's is a loser.
Yeah.
They lost.
So yeah, it sounds like you definitely have a strong premonition that just the stock market.
There is no history in the entire start of stocks. Stocks gain back their losses right away. Then profits and earnings, they make back their money. Then the GDP. GDP isn't going to be back for another 2 years. Profits and earnings probably within a year, and stocks are bouncing back now. It depends on the flow of money. You can't things are gonna come back. Will it be back a little different? Maybe, but it's always the stock market has and always will go up. If you look at everything on average, if you look at an individual horse, you can lose. So serious losers. Fucking Blue Apron was a fucking killer. Their stock went up 900% in the first 3 days of the quarantine.
Wow. And what about do you think the oil and gas industry is going to be permanently affected by this?
I don't think so. I mean, Cruise Carnival is a perfect example of that. They sold out till August or some shit like that. Remember when they had just tried to fill up seats again, and they got booked up real fast. So they're a good example of that. Unfortunately, changes in the industry are going to affect the airline industry because a guy who can just hop in a plane, fly back to a meeting in California, and come back isn't going to have to do that. He can just Zoom everything. So will there be changes? Yes. I think there's definitely going to be. The CEO of Boeing says he expects a major airliner to shut down in the next few months. We're also going to look at, a major one. We're also looking at.
I hope it's United.
Oh God, me too. We're also looking at AMC and Regal. AMC is being looked at by being bought by Amazon. I don't know how real that is, but they're that's another good example. I mean, these industries are still going to be there. I think they're going to be a little different, or we're going to have to combine them with other ones, or they're going to have to look into new revenue streams.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I think we have to end pretty soon just because we're running out of time. But this has all been incredibly fascinating, and it's just good to get a more holistic idea of like how these things actually work and how banking works. So it was
thank you.
It's
Thank
been
you
good
for coming
talking
on,
to you.
man. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any last things you want to say?
Very quickly.
You can follow me on Instagram. I do these financial slides. We always talk about different stocks and stuff. So my Instagram slides, I do them. I announce them. I do them like once a week or so.
What's your handle?
At Daniel J. Perafan. Or Twitter. I do silly stuff on Twitter.
Right on. Fantastic.
All right. Perfect, man. Daniel, great having you on. And you have a good night, man. And
thanks to you too, bud.
That's all we got for Ponzi Screen for the week.
Thanks, man.
Yep, we will.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, man. Good shit.
We'll see y'all later. All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.